you don't have data, and you need to, in order to correct the seasonal cycle, you need to interpolate data onto a seasonal cycle. The seasonal correction is really important because, look here, even at this particular site, you have an amplitude from, maybe 305 up to about 340. So you have a 35 microatmosphere amplitude seasonal cycle. We're looking at trends in the atmosphere of a few ppm, a few microatmospheres per year. So if you were trying to look at trend analysis and you don't account for that seasonal cycle, you're going to get incorrect results. So you need to focus on the seasonal cycle. And what Taro does is that he uses information on the seasonal cycle of SST where we have more data. This is the SST that was measured from on the same cruises that gave you the PCO2 data, but we have much better information on temperature because we have, for example, the World Ocean Atlas. And so we can see how, what kind of biases and holes are introduced by only subsampling the temperature data the same way that we've subsampled the carbon data. And we can use that information to help improve the carbon data because we have the larger temperature data set. You also need to correct for temporal trends to be able to intercompare data in the same region or different regions that have been collected in different times. So here, the data, the observations of the black dots, the monthly mean deseasonalized data are in the circles, and then he's done a trend analysis for different regions, and so that he can bring together data sets make assumptions about what the trends have been, so you can bring together data that was collected in the 1980s with data that was collected in the 1990s in order to put it all into a single coherent into a single coherent database. Unlike the deep water for DIC, there really is no place where we think that there hasn't been a trend in PCO2, and so that needs to be analyzed when you're starting to bring together data sets from different time periods. What he results in is, this is just for 2 particular months. This is the air-sea PCO2. One of the ways that Taro does this trend analysis is rather than looking at absolute PCO2, is he looks at air-sea PCO2 difference and assumes that for most of the ocean that the surface PCO2 is tracking the atmospheric PCO2. So you can use the atmospheric CO2 record as a way of doing this trend analysis to correct and adjust data collected in different time periods. And then what you get are these seasonal maps, monthly maps of air-sea PCO2, and then you can take wind products and estimates of air-sea gas exchange as a function of wind speed and apply that to the PCO2 data and get flux maps. And so this is what you see, this is what gets published, but you should remember that, for example, there's no data at all, not even a single month in large parts of the South Pacific. Other places there's maybe only 1 or 2 very small periods, or there's a strong seasonal bias. And so you've had to do a fair amount of interpolation to get to the PCO2 maps, and then you have to make other assumptions about air-sea flux in order to get to this map. But this is not taking away in any sense the importance of this, but you need to know where it came from and the assumptions that have been used to generate it. So, Bob's conclusions: large calibrated ocean data compilations are required for current scientific questions. There's no doubt about it. And in fact, having these data compilations is a real value-added product beyond just, okay, I don't have to go and collect 15 different data sets from different places. Having a data set that's really been put together carefully and the secondary quality control issues have been looked at is really essential. The primary and secondary quality control can improve the precision and accuracy of the cruise data, And they're significant value, the data products, both to the producers and the oceanographic community. And I think the thing that has changed over the last few years is a lot of the people who produce data really thought of this as an imposition on them, but now they're seeing what the benefits are. And I think everybody, one of the ways that we can recognize that is to make sure that when we use data sets, we cite them correctly. We cite things like this ESSD journal special issue, and we give people credit for all the work that's gone into these products, both in terms of the raw data and the synthetic data products. So I'll stop there and I'll take questions for Bob, I guess. I think GLODAP's on 1x1. So
do they have the same? Do they have monthly breakdowns? Or do they have
no. The GLODAP is because WOS didn't give any seasonal coverage, and that was one of the reasons why Bob didn't want to take that data set and do seasonal nutrients, because one cruise was in one season, particularly in the upper ocean. So yeah, no, it's an annual average product. Yeah, and then.
Where you can get the capacity data?
I will dig that HTML up, but if you search for Lamont Doherty, the LDEO, Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, and Takahashi on Google, you will find it.
I think it's on the
Pretty sure. Is it on CDAC as well now? We should check with Alex, because Taro made some corrections. I'm sure they got into CDAC, but there were some new corrections into some of the data. But yeah, so CDAC, but I always usually check and see what's on Taro's website to make sure that there haven't been any adjustments. But yeah, we can check that at the break or something. Yoko?
Is there any biology data in the data?
No. Well, unless you call dissolved inorganic carbon biology. There are some efforts being put together. There's a project called the Marine Ecosystem Model Intercomparison Project, so MERMIP. We just had our first meeting a couple weeks ago, and Corinne Le Carré in the UK has been trying to pull together various different data sets on things like phytoplankton functional groups, and so we're trying to do that. So yeah, there are some efforts, but not as part as GLODAP. Other comments, questions?
Do we have data products for the coastal ocean?
Not that's one thing that Bob noted, and I think that's a real issue, is how do you do the synthesis for the coastal oceans where you have a lot more, you don't have deep water to do calibration against, you have a lot more heterogeneity, and so I think it's a little bit more challenging. And there have been some efforts, and Sarah and Heather. Heather's been involved in working with the North American Carbon Project that's trying to do a coastal synthesis for coastal waters around the U.S. And I don't know, Heather, if you want to make any comments about where that's at.
Right now, we're just trying to find money to get the community together at some workshops so we can start. I mean, we've got people that are doing different compilations in different parts of the U.S. coastal regions, but in terms of getting people to put that all together, it takes money and resources, and so we recognize that people don't have the time to just do this on their own. There are other obligations. We're actually trying to get some funding for this activity because it's turning out to be a huge undertaking, but it will be a big contribution, I think, to the overall estimates of coastal carbon process.
I mean, I would just echo the general sentiment. Our experience is that data management takes money. It takes more money than people are initially willing to put into it, and data synthesis takes a lot of effort and a lot of money, but it really is the value-added product. So, going to sea is very important. Flying satellites is very important. But if you don't put money up front for synthesis data management, you don't benefit nearly as much as you could.
Actually, a big part of this project will involve a lot of data mining, and we actually want to find money for a technician who can devote their time to this full time, because that's what it will take in order to put this together, something this big. So.
Yeah. People, some things you can do on a voluntary basis at nights, weekends, or on Veterans Day. But others you really need, you need to pay somebody to do it. Other questions? Yeah.
So I'm just a biologist. If I go to the Ocean Data View website and click on download the CLIBAR data,
Yeah.
now I think I've got all these data. Can I trust that I don't need to worry about those secondary quality controls?
Yeah, and that's where the GloatApp data. So the GloatApp has done these calibrated for certain periods of time. So what you want to be aware of is, are you working with the raw data, or are you working with one of these calibrated data sets? So, and you just have to, be aware of that there is a distinction. Use the one you want. Okay. Well, a couple minutes early, but I appreciate you guys hanging in there for a talk that Bob and I had to put together on fairly short notice. So, thanks everybody.